Today, I will be reviewing what is considered one of the best personal finance books of all times. Keep watching to see my review on the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is written by a guy by the name of Robert Kiyosaki, and his story between his rich dad and his poor dad. He takes his best friend's dad, and he uses him as his rich dad. He explains the difference between their two mindsets, the way that they think about things, the way they act, the way and reason why they do all the things they do in their lives. And through this, Robert found a huge difference between the way his poor dad thought and the way his rich dad thought. And what he's doing now is sharing that with all of us. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is made up of 9 different chapters. What I'll be doing today for you is giving you each one of my key takeaways from each one of these 9 chapters. So hopping right into it, into chapter 1. So the title of chapter 1, The Rich Don't Work for Money. So from this chapter, I had 2 key takeaways that I'd like to share with you. First one, mindset is the most important thing a person possesses. It then goes on further to say the mindset of a rich person is that you do not work for money. Instead, you leverage the other tools and resources around you, specifically money and also people, to go ahead and make you more money. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson is you control your emotions. Because when your emotions go up, your intelligence goes down. Chapter number 2, titled Assets versus Liabilities. Getting out of the rat race. So the key takeaway that I took from this chapter is that the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket, versus a liability is something that takes out of your pocket. It is vital to know the difference between these two because a lot of people will sometimes mistake assets for liabilities. In this chapter, Robert specifically says one of the biggest mistakes people make are mistaking their house as an asset. Because if you just take that mentality that I just explained earlier, theoretically, a house isn't making you more money. Instead, you're losing money out of your pocket every single month because you're having to pay down your mortgage and things like that. So it's different if you own real estate and you're renting it out to someone. Therefore, a house would be an asset. But the house that you are living in is technically a liability. Chapter number 3, mind your own business. So in the beginning, I was a bit confused. Okay, what does this exactly mean? But throughout the chapter, Robert explains to us minding your own business means building up your assets first. So in building assets, once a dollar comes in, never let it come out. And Robert actually tells a really cool story on this one. He explains that once a dollar goes in, it isn't just a dollar anymore. It becomes your employee. And this employee, aka your dollar, will work 24 hours a day and will work for generations and generations. The way that Robert defines real assets is that real assets do not require his presence, ever. Because if they did require his presence, it would therefore be considered his job, not a real asset anymore. Chapter number 4. Taxes and the power of corporations. In this chapter, Robert provides a bit of insight into the extremely powerful tools and massive tax benefits that corporations can give you. Also in this chapter, Robert talks about building up your financial IQ. The 4 specific sectors of financial IQ that he says to go ahead and focus on: accounting, investing, understanding the markets, aka the stock markets, and the law. Okay, so now moving on to chapter number 5, how the rich invent money. So the key takeaways from this chapter is that money is not real. Because when you really think about it, money is just a transfer of some other service, whether that be for a product or for a knowledge of a specific industry. Money is simply just used to go ahead and transact, to go ahead and pay someone to give their services. With that being said, You have to go ahead and build up your assets and or resources that you can share with people. And what Robert says, as was touched upon in previous chapters, our mind is our greatest asset. Therefore, train it well. Be bold. Take risks. Don't be afraid to fail. Because by doing this, you will learn so much more than you ever did if you didn't take these risks. If you didn't have the possibility of failing. And to finish this idea off, Robert says, let that genius convert that fear into power and brilliance. Because just as I said a couple seconds ago, our mind is our greatest asset, our most powerful tool. So how are you going to go ahead and train it to best help you? Chapter 6, work for knowledge, not for money. So as you just heard in last chapter, our mind is our greatest asset. And in the end, money isn't real. It's simply just something that is used to transact for someone's services or knowledge. So with that being said, don't work for money. Work to learn. In the book, Robert says learning meant everything to my rich dad. Versus his poor dad, on the other hand, money simply meant everything to him. It didn't matter whether he was learning or not from it. As long as it put money in the bank, that's all he cared about. And to those of you who haven't read his book and are watching today, this may make sense to you. But the problem with this is that this is simply short-term thinking. It's just simply trading your time for money in the short term and not looking to the longer term. Because even though, yes, in the short term, by working for knowledge rather than money, you will have less money in the bank. Yes, absolutely. But in the future, you'll have skills that are invaluable to you and that will allow you to earn exponential amounts more than if you simply were just working for money. So to add on, what do I do when I'm trying to go ahead and work for the knowledge, not for the money? Robert says to work with people that are smarter than you. And also to bring together a team of extremely smart people to surround yourself with. Robert then later in the chapter goes on to say what specific tools are vital for every person to know in order to be successful. And these tools that he's referring to are communication skills. Skills such as writing, speaking, and negotiation are crucial to a life of success. Chapter 7, overcoming obstacles. This chapter encourages us to embrace fear and failure with open arms. The problem is today that so many people are deathly afraid of failing. Afraid of looking stupid in front of somebody else. Afraid of not hitting their goals or achieving what they set out to. In this chapter, Robert explains to us the importance of failure and goes further in depth to say those people that are afraid of failing will not be as successful as those that embrace failure. Robert encourages us to try things, and weirdly enough, actually encourages us to fail. Because you could learn so much more, as I've said before. You can learn so much from your failures. More than you ever did if you were simply just successful. Robert also goes on to say that you need to take those failures that you have and use it as an inspiration to succeed in the future. And then in the chapter as well, Robert included a quote that I thought was very touching and powerful. The quote is by John D. Rockefeller. And Rockefeller says, "I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity." Chapter 8, getting started. So in this chapter, Robert lists 10 different steps that you should take to go ahead and get started today. Things that will help you start becoming more successful and help you improve all aspects of your life. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go ahead and go through each one of these 10 steps. But I highly suggest if anybody has enjoyed this review so far, so I highly recommend that you get a copy of the book And then once you get the book there, that's where you can see the 10 steps that take you literally step by step of what you need to do in order to be more successful in your life and to be more effective in whatever you do. But I do want to share two things that I found very fundamental and profound to me when reading these 10 steps. The first one, know that the only thing holding you back is yourself. The second one that I wanted to share with you, there's gold everywhere. And by gold here, Robert means opportunities. Opportunities in business, opportunities in life, opportunities in whatever field it is. He explains to us they're everywhere around us. The problem is, people just aren't trained to see it. So for the last and final chapter, we have chapter 9, to-dos. As you might have been able to tell throughout the rest of this book review, Robert provides actionable steps that we can take today to go ahead and change our lives. It's not one of those books that, do this, do that. No, absolutely not. I mean, that's helpful, I guess, in a sense, but just simply trying to learn is useless. Your knowledge is only useful if you're using that knowledge and taking action with it. So what Robert does is that he gives us step-by-step guides of what to do so that we can take action today. And with that, as I might have just alluded to, the key takeaway that I took from this last and final chapter is simply take action. Now in this chapter, Robert includes a lot of different steps, both summarizing what he told us in the past, as well as sharing a couple things as well. But some of the key action points that I found were: number 1, take a pause in your life and figure out what is working and what's not working. Oftentimes, let's say for example at work, we'll go through and analyze all of our processes, all the things we're doing, to go ahead and figure out, okay, how can we make this better? How can we improve our systems? Which is great because it helps a lot. But how many times have you done that in your own life? How many times have you gone through and said, and laid it all out in front of you? These are the things I do in my life. And then figure out, okay, what's working? Continue doing that. And what's not working? And how can I change that? The second thing, try new things. And specifically, try new things that you know nothing about. Robert talks about the importance behind this because it's so vital for you to continuously grow and learn new things. Because if you just continuously do the same things over and over and over again, you're never going to grow as a person and become better. Tip number 3 that Robert gives us is find someone who has done what you want to do and take them out to lunch. Which might sound weird, but you can learn so much just by simply having a conversation with them. And oftentimes these people are more than willing to help. So, he touches upon this in the book, but to briefly explain, just take action on it. Whether it be someone at your office, someone in your family, or maybe someone that you met online. It might be a weird feeling for you to reach out to the person and say, hey, I love the work that you're doing. I'd love to go out to lunch, take you out to lunch. You pay. And have a conversation with you. And I can tell you, by doing this, you will learn so much. And then the fourth tip, actionable item that I'd like to share with this is take classes, read, and attend seminars. Because as I just said a couple minutes ago, it is so important that we try new things, learn new things. Because if we don't, we're never going to improve ourselves. And we're going to be stuck in the same rut that we have for the past couple weeks, past couple months, or past couple years. And with that being said, that rounds off the very last chapter of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So as you can see, this is a book that's filled with a lot of actual items, things that we can actually start today to improve our lives and to bring more success to our lives. And throughout this book review, I've gone through a lot of different key takeaways that I've learned. But I think if I were to summarize it in one sentence, the most important takeaway for me from this book is the mindset behind success. Yes, obviously you need specific skills at times to go ahead and be successful and to put yourself up there. But ultimately, the most important trait that a person needs to have in order to lead to their success is simply the mindset. Because when you have the proper mindset, everything starts flowing into place. And slowly over time, success simply just comes to you. So, now that the book review has been complete, if you do like this book review, please drop a like down below. If you do like some of my content, please also subscribe to my channel. If there's any other book that you'd like me to go ahead and review, please drop that down in the comments below. And also, while you're down in the comments, I'd really appreciate you telling me something that I could improve in this series, or also some things that you liked, just so I can go ahead and make these book review series as entertaining and as informational and helpful to all of you watching. So, thank you all for watching. Stay tuned. I'm going to have a bunch of other awesome content coming out soon. And thank you so much for watching.